Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. All right, this is a video in which we will talk about the film White Noise. This was released in 2022. In Venice, it was viewed in August 31st, 2022, and then it was released in the United States on Netflix November 25th of the same year, of course. Now, this film is worthy of attention. This is, I think, full of important predictive programming. Maybe even you'd better classify it as type of warning. Um, it has the same themes in a lot of respects that we find in other predictive programming that we've seen or covered on the channel, including um, topics related to Utopia, The Simpsons, iPetGoat 2, and it certainly has Get Out and Us themes as well. Now, we've talked about Get Out and Us in relation to these various threads. I have a series on this. I don't know if it's on YouTube or my BitChute channel, but it's out there. Get Out, of course, points to these are Jordan Peele films, all of them produced by Blumhouse, Peele, and McKittrick. These lines. So Get Out and Us were produced and or directed by these guys, these two films, and then after them, Blum went on to continue this with this line of films, Peele with these, and McKittrick with Antebellum. Now, Get Out in the title we saw points to that June 21st, 2020 annular eclipse, followed by the buck moon. The dates are embedded in the name and gematria, so we've talked about that enough. I'm not going to repeat the details, but long story short, we have the annular eclipse font here, where it's just a light outline for out, and that date embedded in that name is 6/21/2020. And then here in this, you get a lunar font eclipse, okay, here, which also points to the July 5th, 2020 date. So the T is the 20th letter, the E is the 5th, and the G is the 7th. So you have 7/5/20, and here you get the 6/21/20 as well. Now, what we have is Get Out, Us, the U.S., with this 9/11, and then here we have followed by You Should Have Left. Get out of the U.S., you should have left. Get out, the U.S., you should have left. There's a hunt of the, I'll call it the right wing coming, and Get Out of the U.S. And then we have some dates embedded here, and the Beaver Moon last year, and all sorts of stuff and freaky. So we have in false flag events implied, I think. Get Out before the Civil War, the next Civil War, Antebellum, and then Get Out before we have again an uprising, and then Nope, just like You Should Have Left. Nope, it's like there comes a point where you can't get out. Now, I'm not going to focus on that, but there's definitely themes here. We will see that as we go in. In fact, at the very opening of the film, White Noise, we're going to have some little hints of getting out, I think. Now, interestingly, this Get Out, we know right now it's, I'm recording this on October 21st, 2023. The conflict in the Middle East, Hamas and Israel, began on October 7th, so 2 weeks ago. And this Get Out of the U.S., if you look closely, the Netflix new releases in October 2023, the day before that war began, interestingly, Get Out and Us were added to their list of films available for you to view and stream. Now, in this film, so now getting to White Noise, in this film it's about death. A lot of it's about death. It's showing the film, if you're looking at sort of the main plot and what's going on there. White Noise represents death, the sound, like a TV static or whatever, as an example. White Noise represents death in the film. Now, the book may be a little different. There might be some race thicker racial topics going on there, where white noise is like the noise of white people, like in suburbia or whatever. I've not read the book. I've just read a little about the book, and I'm not going to get too much into that. I think they're repurposing it a bit, but white noise definitely in this film is pointing primarily to death, and there will be throughout some race topics coming up, I think, implied, but I'm not going to dig into that a whole lot because even beyond the primary meaning of the film, we're going to look at what's going on sort of allegorically, and there's a lot of it, and there are definitely hints of that. And this film, if you followed it at all, was released in 2022, just before, in February 2023, the East Palestine in Ohio, the train derailment and the toxic, the chemicals burning and creating a lot of pollution and leading to people being evacuated from the city and all sorts of things. Okay, so this film already was filmed in Ohio and had a train toxic airborne event from a train derailment that exploded with hazardous chemicals. And that was just a few months before it actually happened. And so that right there, is sort of shocking and should raise red flags and say, hey, this is something to look into, to take seriously, because it seems like there may be something explicit going on in predictive programming here. And I would suggest that that was not the main event that this film is pointing to. Okay, and I'll show you why. I mean, one of the symptoms in the film of being exposed to the toxic event is deja vu. Why? Because it's like this happened before. This is like a preview for what was going to come later in probably Palestine, and then beyond that, what goes on in the world. And I think we're going to see some of that. Now, what is the symbolism? We're going to be introduced to this family, Jack and his wife, Babette. Okay. This is very interesting who they represent. I believe they represent, some speculation. I'm 100% sure of the exact best way to frame what they are. But combined, I think they're representing Babylon. Now, that may seem like a stretch, right? Why? Why would they be representing Babylon? Okay, her name is Babette. She goes by Baba. She, as we will see later in the film, incidentally, guys, this is going to spoil the whole thing. I'm not at all worried about trying to protect you from spoilers. So if you want to go watch the movie first for entertainment purposes before you listen to the rest, go for it. Otherwise, expect me to be completely indifferent and just talk about what's going to happen. And I'm not even going to save things for the end for me. I'm just going to tell you stuff as it goes. But anyways, so Jack and Babette, she's named Baba, and then we find out later that she trades sex for drugs. So she's acting as a harlot. Okay. She also has gold hair, which Murray points out that she has important hair, which in Thelema is often can be associated with Babylon. We'll talk about that a little bit. Babylon, the daughter of Babylon. And Jack here is a professor and the founder of the Hitler Studies program at the College on the Hill. And I think he represents the other aspect of Babylon. You have two parts of Babylon in the way the occult is understanding it, and I picked those two. You have the United States, the younger, more beautiful Babylon, and then you have the Catholic Church and the Pope as the old, worn-out whore of Babylon. And Jack, in the film, comes across as this nice, gentle guy who ends up being a killer at the end, who founded the Hitler Studies program, and is older than her. She's a younger wife in the film. I don't know how many years, but it's a decent amount. And so we have the younger Babylon, the older Babylon. They both go together. she's committing adultery, and not just adultery, but she's doing it in exchange for like a sale. Okay, as we'll see, and there are other reasons. Now, if, at the end of the film, on the wall, we see the U.S. President Kennedy holding hands with the Pope in heaven here. Okay, and below that we see them. See? Same clothes. You know, I say same clothes symbolically. The light, the red, the gray blue, the blue gray, whatever. She's representing the United States. He's representing the Catholic Church, I believe. And here's your light. Now, so I'm laying this out at the beginning so that you don't think, it's too, it's just an arbitrary thing. Okay, that I'm just making this up. It sounds like they're representing these. There is a plausible case for the representation being almost explicit that we're getting this allegory. And I believe this scene points to their death. Okay, at the end. Now, let me go back. What was I going to say here? Well, we'll get to this, but we're going to go through it. And again, like I said, I'm not sure it's super tight, like how loosely we should understand Babylon here, if it's only the U.S. and the Roman Catholic Church explicitly, or if it's more general, like these are the influential characters in Babylon, or whatever. I'm not sure. We're also going to see Mr. Rabbit later, I believe, and so on, which we've seen in Utopia and elsewhere. All right, so let's get in. How does the film start? Starts with a lecture from Murray at the university, the professors, him, Murray, and Jack. Okay. And Murray is talking about film and car crashes in American film, how American film, Americans are the best at creating car crashes in film. It's this destructive thing is sort of a part of U.S. culture and excellence and so on. And behind him, of course, you have the exit sign, like "Get out," because we're getting he comes across like this is a beautiful, great thing. What's going on inside the theater with the lecture hall, and showing the films on the screen, and but it's almost like you should be getting out. A montage of car crashes from movies and TV plays on the screen. The images are intercut with students watching, fascinated, taking notes, and Murray delivering his lecture. Don't think of a car crash in a movie as a violent act. So he's trying to spin what's terrible as something good. No, these collisions are part of a long tradition of American optimism, a reaffirmation of traditional values and beliefs, a celebration. So again, an affirmation of traditional values and beliefs. What? Violence, destruction. Okay, such that no other no other country can compete to. Foreign movies can never approach what they do in the U.S. Okay, front end collisions, rear end smashes, and so on. Think of these crashes like you do of Thanksgiving and the 4th of July. Deep American traditions, distinctly American. On these days, we don't mourn the dead or rejoice in miracles. No, these are days of secular optimism, of self-celebration, like these car crashes. Each car crash is meant to be better than the last. There is a constant upgrading of tools and skills, a meeting of challenges, and so on. Okay, you can read the rest, but the idea here, I think, is pointing to a paradox. On the sort of image of the United States as this great, wonderful, innocent country, while at the same time it's violent, murderous, and so on. That is Jack, if you think about it. Really, as you'll see in the film, gentle guy, seems not very overbearing at all. Okay, and that's why I say it's like, is he just pointing to the Catholic Church and she just pointing to the U.S., or is this somehow jointly they represent just Babylon as a whole and sort of the system? I think it's something more like that. But Jack, he comes across so nice, but at the end of the film, he's the one with the gun going to kill somebody. Okay, and we'll get there. But see, there's a wonderful, brimming spirit of innocence and fun, juxtaposed to destruction on the TV, and that represents sort of culturally what they're like, an affirmation of their traditional values and beliefs. Innocence and fun, there's sort of tension there. And then we go to the title screen, white noise, and we get a section one. First section, waves and radiation. Could have hints long term of heading towards nuclear conflict with nuclear radiation, but primarily later on Heinrich points out that the waves and radiation he's most concerned with, that we should be most concerned with in the film explicitly in the conversation, sort of a background conversation, are the waves and radiation of the technology around us. Okay, so more mundane, but that causes health effects and that people overlook, and that if we were to actually point it out and deal with it, we'd see a collapsing economy because we depend so much on technology that is emitting harmful waves and radiation. Now, let's go on in this section. We're at the college on the hill. This is where Jack is a professor, Murray as well, and we see the freshmen coming on like a station wagon day. Jack enjoys this so much. It's the beginning of the year. Apparently, he's looking out to watch these students, or maybe not the beginning of the year. They're coming back to school. I don't know if it's after a break or the summer break, actually. But and we start to see hints of his his Hitler Studies program, Nazis surrender, war in Europe, ended terms, unconditional, and he's just enjoying the moment. And we get this line, let's enjoy these aimless days while we can. In a sense, that's sort of the theme of the film. What we're going to see here is these aimless days, which are called boring later on, but Babette says she hopes they last forever, that they never end or something like that. These aimless days, one of the values is enjoy it while you can because it's going to end. And it's going to end soon. Okay? Who knows if there'll be a next year. Okay, this film being released in the fall of 2022. You get this like a year possibly implied before things get bad. But this film has a lot of eclipse symbolism, and I think pretty explicit April 8th, 2024 eclipse symbolism and what comes after it. As far as their projections, the occult elite, very similar to IPICO 2, but we'll get there. Okay, so let's enjoy these aimless days while we can. And we see that they were excited. She wanted to see it. He was supposed to remind her. She didn't get the reminders, so she missed it. And she wants to know what it was like, She needs reminding because she's taking a drug that affects her mind. Okay, we'll get to that. He started the Hitler Studies program 16 years ago in 1968. That's how this film set in the 80s. He's witnessed this event 16 years. You see station wagons, people dressing the way they dressed at the time. And he says, I knew it, and the men are in hacking jackets. They've grown comfortable with their money. He says, I have trouble imagining death at that income level. We're starting to get right to death, right? He's having a hard time imagining people like this dying because they're so prosperous, wealthy, and so on. Unlike the U.S. again. We're very wealthy country, hard to imagine it actually coming to an end because it seems so embedded and secure because it's wealth. And like, I don't know. It's like Revelation 18 talking about the whore of Babylon, right? It just seems like it should never be able to fall, but in one day, 1 hour. Okay, now, he said, maybe there's no death as we know it, just documents changing hands. It's interesting. The film begins here, as we, after the start with Murray in the lecture, but after we get that sort of preview, it goes to the title screen. Then we end up here, and this is where we really get our first action. It is in the kitchen at home, just doing mundane family things. You hear the kids having conversations in the background. And it's almost like white noise the way it's presented because it's just a lot of noise. They're talking, people in the background talking. You get little bits of different conversations. And this is the whole let's enjoy these aimless days while we can, because at the end of the film, we're going to go back to the kitchen, and I believe it's after their death, with the hint of them going, quote unquote, to heaven, and the heaven being shown to be not what theologically we would call like a heaven or an eternal state of bliss with God or something like that. But what you have is a returning to the mundane things. They're back in their kitchen, and that is your heaven right now. You better get used to it, because that's all you're getting, according to the film. Enjoy these aimless days while you can, because that's your heaven. And we're going to get that at the end, because it's pointing out the coming death. Now, we get these little conversations in the background. You get no context, but it's called the sun's Corolla. I believe it's talking about the corona, because later on it talks about family is the I forgot the exact line. We'll get to it, but it's the source of misinformation, right? This confusion. So we're getting these little hints at the very beginning, but it's called the sun's Corolla, and so he says, I thought Corolla was a car, but she's talking about the Corona, which again I think might be a hint that we're supposed to be looking for eclipses later. They'll be featured throughout this film. Now, and in relation to timelines, I think. So, it's called the sun's Corolla. We saw it on the Weather Network. He's playing chess against this is Heinrich, one of the sons. He's playing chess via mail against a prisoner who was a murderer of 5 people and then killed a police officer as well in a chase, I think, afterwards. And, Jack's like, you still playing the fellow in prison? I think I got him cornered. Who did he kill? He'll kill again. He was under pressure. He's giving an excuse. Heinrich. Babette regards to play, they're doing different things. So there's Jack. We get a little mention of Capricorn. I don't know if that's relevant. Season. It's the 10th zodiac symbol. It's the, the goat horned sign here from December 22nd to January 19th. No clue if that's important, but it was mentioned, so I just threw those dates up so you know what's going on. In the conversation, we see that Babette is going to sneak a little medicine out and take her pill, and she's going to throw it in the trash. Denise, her daughter, Jack's, not Jack's biological daughter, but just Babette. Denise watches Babette put in the trash, and not just put in the trash, but sort of hide it a little deeper down in the trash, as if she's trying not to get caught. She did this all stealthily. And Babette heads off, take a shower. Denise is like, didn't she already take a shower today? Okay, like, Babette is doing suspicious stuff, sort of sneaking around, making some strange claims about what she's doing that don't make much sense. And Denise is on top of it. Denise goes, digs out the bottle, and we see Dylar. Dylar is going to play a big role in this film, as it is this mysterious substance, an experimental drug created by a guy who I believe is playing the role of Mr. Rabbit, okay, and a company, Gray, what was it called? Gray Research, I think is what it is. So again, showing that the research being performed is somehow in the morally suspect area. Gray, it's not black or white. It's in that not very safe. And we have take one every 3 days, and you get the B458. Might be before 58. B is the second letter of the alphabet. Might be a 2458. So before 58, it could be before August 5th, 2024, or before May 8th, 2024. Right? I think we have a possible hint there of what's coming. Right? Dylar sounds a little bit like dying. And the guy, Mr. Rabbit, who took it, you'll see later, ends up shot after or under the April 8th, 2024 eclipse. So it could be before the, in 2024, right? Before the May 8th date, after the April 8th date, or it could be before August 8th. I'm not sure if that's, I'm reading too much into that, but there you go. Before 5/8. Now, they go up, couple, Jack and Babette, go to the bedroom, have a little conversation there. We get some intimacy, but nothing, graphic. But they talk, and then she ends up reading to him. Um, she doesn't like this language in these erotic books of entering one person, entering another person, and so on. She finds that distasteful. She also doesn't want him to call her his partner. She says, "I'm your partner when we're playing tennis. Otherwise I'm your wife." And they go on. The book she ends up reading to him and is The Velvet Touch, which is a 1948 American. Let's see, what was I going to say? Who should die? Oh, a second. The book. Leading lady accidentally kills her producer and former lover, Gordon Dunning. I think that may be looking forward a little bit to the way that I think Jack in the film, even though the film itself doesn't explicitly say they died, I believe the meaning of what's going on is their death happens. And it does happen because of Babette's infidelity and adultery with some effectively prostitution, right? Trading sex for a drug product. That behavior, her behavior, does end up leading Jack to go down this line where he ends up getting killed, I think. Okay, that's the idea. Now, so this was maybe a little bit of foreshadowing here, and disagreement about who should die first. Notice that the conversation always turns back to death in this film, and here Jack and Babette, the two sides of Babylon, are wondering who's going to go first. At the end of the film, they go together. Okay, they go together. I'm not sure who goes first exactly, but they seem to die together. But there's this question: who should go first? And both of them seem like they'd be very unhappy if the other went. And they're arguing about who would be worse off without the other, basically. A little bit of sort of romantic sounding stuff, but with nested in some, just almost a little bit comical dialogue. Your death, but there's always deeper meaning. Your death, Babette, would leave an abyss in my life. So if this was the Catholic Church minus the U.S., it would leave an abyss. I would be left talking to chairs and pillows. The Catholic Church being pointless and weak and, nothing without the strength of Babylon, the political system, maybe. And she says, your death would be more than an abyss. What's more than an abyss? It would be a yawning gulf, she says. So the political beast system without the Catholic Church, maybe, would be a yawning gulf. Your death would be a profound depth, a void. She turns back to them, their faces almost touching in the dark. Don't be that way. Your death would definitely leave a bigger hole in my life than mine would leave in yours. You'll be fine. You'll travel. Without the Catholic Church system, you'll travel and live a new and exciting life. I'll just sit in that chair in that suit I wore at your funeral, to your funeral forever, and so on. You're wrong, and you don't really want to die first. You don't want to be alone, but you don't want to die more than you don't want to be alone, she says. Jack says nothing. And then we get this very interesting comment. Who decides these things? Who decides who dies first? And then at that point, we get a din of lots of sounds of Nazi propaganda, crowds, speeches, and Jack looks up like this. Who is out there to decide these things? And then we get our Nazism, right? So now we go to sort of a fascist preview, right? Who's going to decide these things? These types of people. But we're actually transitioning in the film from to sleep, so it'd be easy to miss that. Who decides these things? Nazis. Because what we're actually doing is transitioning to the next day when he's in a lecture hall teaching in his Hitler Studies program a course about Nazism. Here, I think we may get a little bit of eclipse symbolism, right? We get the almost that familiar symbol where we have the sun and the star or whatever, and the sun representing eclipse because he's got his eye, one eye shaded out a bit, and the other one there, and he's going to put his glasses up like an eclipse as he looks at this, and then he's going to go on to give his lecture. And Jack says, when people are helpless and scared, that's where we're headed. They're drawn to magical figures, mythical figures, epic men who intimidate and darkly loom. And the student asks about the July 20th plot to kill Hitler back in 1944. And all plots move deathward. See, now it's interesting. Jack, it's like the question is about a historical event. And Jack doesn't talk about the event itself. He generalizes, and the film is related to plots and contracts, and it's a very interesting, I think it's sort of hidden in there, but he generalizes. He goes to a general comment about plots. All plots move deathward. This is the nature of plots. Political plots, terrorist plots, lovers plots, narrative plots, and so on. Okay, they all move deathward. And he's going, well, he's talking about that. Okay. Terrorist plots, lovers plots. We're seeing what Babette's doing. She's out teaching some, health, fitness-related class for elderly people, and she's saying up to the sky, and as they're raising their rings again, which we've seen in various places, rings representing eclipses. What do we have? It's definitely more than 5, which is a common number. We also have 10 eclipses in one of the films, with the which includes partial 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I don't think the number is significant, or if it is, I don't even know if we can get a full count. I don't think we ever see the whole class, but we get some eclipse symbolism here. Perhaps plots that are part of children's games. We edge nearer to death every time we plot. So that's Jack talking. What we're seeing her. We edge nearer to death every time we plot. Okay, they're happily heading in that way, right there, enjoying themselves as they're getting close to death as elderly people is the idea. Left arm, left foot, left arm, and what was that? It's like a contract we all must sign. All must sign. So this contract language, and I do not have a clear picture of what's going on here, but there's like a contract, and it comes up more than one time in the film. We'll see it. I'll point it out when it does, and you all can give insights into what you think that contract is. But it seems to be a contract of death, a contract related to a plot, and an agreement between parties, including Mr. Rabbit and Babylon, to self-destruct or to kill. Okay, and I'm not sure what the details are, but this is plot, and it's a contract that all must sign, the plotters as well as the targets of the plot. And later on, there's an implied commitment or participation in the contract of even the people being the targets of the plot because they're in the room with the parties. So the people, for example, in Babylon are parties to the contract as targets, okay? And they're considered parties because they are present in the location of the attacks. Now, I'll skip ahead and come back. What slide am I on? Okay, I'm going to go back to that in just a second. Let me find the slide where we can see this contract, quote unquote, talked about. Okay. That's not it. Getting there. Okay, I'm almost there. Sorry for just for taking a moment to find this, but I think it's worth it. Later, Jack's going to walk in. He sees this guy who I believe is holding the role of Mr. Rabbit, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But he walks in, and he doesn't even look at him. But there's then we agree. To enter a room, to be in the space, think of it that way, is to agree to a certain kind of behavior. It isn't a street or the parking lot, for instance. The point of rooms is that they're inside. There is an unwritten agreement, a contract, between the person who enters a room and the person whose room has been entered. A room is inside. This is what people in rooms have to agree on, as differentiated from lawns, meadows, fields, orchards. Okay, so there we're getting this agreement. If you're in my space, you are agreeing to this. This is the contract. Okay, and a little later, well, again, we're going to come back to this, but before he's about to be killed, see, she wore the ski mask so as not to kiss my face, which she will get to, which she said was un-American. I told her a room is inside. Do not enter a room not agreeing to this. This is the point, as opposed to emerging coastlines, continental places. Like there's a sort of geopolitical or geographical connection here. If you're in the place, you are submitting yourselves to the terms of the agreement and accepting responsibility for it. And she says it's un-American to do this. She represents America. She says it's un-American to do this. He says, but you're in here. You're going to come in. If you're going to be here, you're agreeing to the terms. Okay. So let's go back up to where we were. This is contract element of the plot, and the plotter is a participant in the contract. You have made an agreement to subject yourselves to the plot because you are here and you stayed here. Okay, that's the idea. So you've consented. You are now responsible. They've even given you hints in films and predictive programming and other places. They're telling you what they're doing, and you stayed. You're in it. It's your decision. And that reminds me a lot of Revelation 18:4, where it talks about Babylon. It says, come out from among them, the people, lest you partake in their sins and in their plagues. Get out or you're guilty. That's the idea. Okay. We did that. Okay. So it continues, and Jack continues. It's like a contract that all must sign, the plotters as well as the targets of the plot. And then we move over to Jack being taught German. Now, Germany seems to play a role in this. Now, it reminds me of the song First We Take Manhattan by Leonard Cohen. Then we take Berlin, right? And the first Manhattan attack was the 9/11 attack in 2001, the 9/11 attacks. But the second one, the hint is the bigger one is Berlin. Now, I've always understood that to represent the world, looking back to JFK's speech about Berlin. We're all Berliners in the free world, the West, basically. And so first we take Berlin, first take Manhattan, then we take Berlin would be pointing to, and then the whole West goes down. Now, that may be what's going on here, but there seems to be pretty explicit German symbolism throughout the film. Now, that may be because the West has also been, if you want to call it, infiltrated by what was left of Nazism. Operation Paperclip after World War II, which is when the West, the U.S. especially, went out and got a bunch of former Nazi researchers and important people, brought them over and gave them jobs and freedom. And they were allowed to operate within high positions in the government, unelected, but they were holding these positions. And so it may be that, in a sense, the West has become Berlin. Berlin conquered them, just not in the way that you would expect it. I'm not sure. But Germany comes up a lot. We'll see more Germantown later, and we'll see people speaking German throughout the film. Jack here, of course, is Hitler Studies program founder and professor and Hitler expert, but yet he's embarrassed he doesn't know German, so he's studying German on the side before a conference that's coming up so that he can speak German, because there'll be a lot of German-speaking academics there. Okay. Then we go to the supermarket. This is important. The supermarket, again, in the allegory, seems to represent, I suspect, Iran. I know it sounds dumb. Uh, it's either Iran or part of the world or whatever. I'm not sure exactly, but I think it represents Iran. And we'll talk about that why later, the why. But Butcher's Corner, the butcher, they're going to add an actual butcher, and it's coming soon. And Murray, who's an expert at spinning horrible things and into nice, positively giving positive spin and trying to you can say the craziest things and make it sound like it's a good thing, like um, the aroma of bread combined with the sight of a blood-stained man pounding strips of living veal is very exciting, right? Now, Jack introduces Murray to his wife, Babette, and the family. His specialty, Murray especially, is living icons, especially Elvis, we'll see later. Nobody in any university in this country can so much as utter a word about Hitler, Murray says, without talking about Jack, because Jack's super important. He's Jack in real life, Babette says. His name, we call him Jack, not J-A-K, Gladney or whatever. Hitler is now Gladney's Hitler. Hitler is now Gladney's Hitler. I marvel at what you've done with the man. So he marvels at what Jack has done with Hitler. I want to do the same with Elvis. And he says, who are these children? Hitler and Elvis are going to come together quite a bit in this film. I think it's a representation, Elvis, again, of the United States to their level, and Hitler, of course, of what Hitler represents, all of the fascism, Nazism, these sorts of things. And the two come together, the U.S. and its whatever properties of Hitler that are being emphasized, always negative because Hitler is, the paradigmatic symbol of evil in culture. So Hitler and Elvis come together, and we'll see that a lot. So the U.S. and this fascism, or I guess. Who are these children? Yours? And well, there's Denise, she says. And then she can't remember the other ones and disappears because she's on that medicine that's messing up her memory. We overhear the conversations again, like white noise. What's going on? There are more people dead today than in the rest of world history. Steffi. Jack says, Steffi, there's one. We have to boil their water. They're talking. Mine from Wives 1 and 3. There's Denise. Background noise. On Neptune, it rains diamonds. Babette's from Husband 2. Wilder's ours. We're each other's fourth. I'm sure you can do some of those numbers there. They're each other's fourth. I don't know if that could be like representation of them being the fourth beast or something like that. Or probably not, but just, somebody can think through that. But Babylon, if there is Babylon symbolism going on here, and Babylon's associated with the fourth beast, the two being in a union, could be the whore and the beast together, the one riding on the back of the other. Then they sort of destroy each other, and all of that symbolism in Revelation. Okay, and the fourth could be representation of that. Okay, family is, and he says family, there's the language, the expression, family is the cradle of the world's misinformation. Okay, there must be something in family life that generates factual error. And so we did this. But anyways, keep going. They keep walking around. Here, Murray points out your wife's hair is a living wonder. She has important hair. I think you know what I mean. Again, we're supposed to try to figure that out. I'm not sure I've got it or not, but in the eloquent blood, the goddess Babylon, and the construction of femininities, feminist, in Western. Why do I? Sometimes when I read out loud, I don't even want to say things because I'm going to mispronounce them, even though I know how to say the word. Esotericism. Okay. Babylon plays a central role in the ninth Aether, I'm not sure. Very light of God himself. Let's see. Crowley is greeted with an emissary of an army who salutes him as he whose blood hath been gathered into the cup of Babylon. Crowley is led to a place built out of jewels and beset with moons, which turns out to be the body of a young girl, unimaginably beautiful and delicate, and perverse too. I've actually read the text of that section. The young girl's 12, and so Crowley is, pedophile perversion here. Unimaginably beautiful and delicate, her naked body covered in fine gold hairs, her long hair being the very light of God himself, of all the glories beheld by the seer and the ethers or whatever it is. Okay, so we have, again, I think a type of confirmation. We're looking at some sort of picture of Babylon here. You also see Lily, who I've explained in iPeco 2, represents Babylon. I was preparing a video or a set of slides where I have my own explanation of their little symbols from iPeco 2. Here's from the original website. Lily, and suddenly starting realization arose in Lily. This apple is not mine. She thought it belongs to someone else. This symbol of the curse that she's going to let roll out of her magic circle. Well, anyways, the witch, Lilith, Queen of Cups, the whore of Babylon I had written, and here also is a mystery of mysteries. Lilith is truly Babylon. Right, so again, of course, she also has the gold hair. Okay. Golden haired green girl, and so on. All right, and there's the actual text that you can read from this, where it says she's 12 years old, girl, in this scene that's naked and being lusted after by them. Disgusting. Now, here we have this little scene in the supermarket. Babette passes over and she's going to get some gum. And it says that stuff causes cancer in laboratory animals, if you didn't know. What's destroying her? Well, of course, if you have to read into it again, this is all, I don't know. Again, you have to interpret it. You can't just take it at face value. Gum causes cancer in laboratory rats, if you don't know this type of gum. And there's this conversation between Denise and Babette's like, I either smoke or I chew gum. But if you look carefully, it's a carefree gum. What's actually the harm? Being carefree. It's being oblivious to what's going on, ignorant, continuing where you're at. Now, later on, there's a talk about Babette and her cup, cup of coffee. But it's funny because Babylon's cup. But anyways, her cup of coffee, when she has a cup, that's dangerous, it says later on, too. Heinrich says, and the other girl says, but she says it relaxes her. Heinrich says anything that relaxes you is dangerous. Being carefree is dangerous. What relaxes you is dangerous, because right now you don't need to be relaxed. That's what they're going to try to lure us into being. You need to be attentive and know what's going on, watch, and make the changes necessary. So, okay. Now, as it continues, so she's okay, don't chew it on. Either I chew gum or I smoke. Keep going. I got to move faster. We got a lot of slides to go through. Okay, daughter talks about conflict with Denise, and they've mentioned Babette's stuff. Babette is using the medicine, and he's like, he doesn't really know about it. He's finding out. He needs to have a conversation with her. He's watching her doing her running. She's fit. He's sitting there doing nothing. They're going to have this conversation. I know I forget things, but I didn't know it was so obvious. It isn't. I dial the number, forget who I'm calling. We all forget. See, Jack is a very understanding guy, trying to charitably interpret everything happening. She says, I don't care what the girls say. It can't be the gum I chew. Being carefree and so on. What it actually is that she's carefree. She took the experimental drug, which is causing the health issue. That's too far-fetched. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you're taking something besides chewing gum. Jack's hinting, trying to get her to talk about this Dylar that she's taking. We always tell each other everything. She says, my life is either or, sort of moving on. Either I chew gum, chew regular gum, or I chew sugarless gum. Either I chew gum or I smoke. Either I smoke or I gain weight. Either I gain weight or I run the stadium steps. They say, sounds like a boring life. And she says, I hope it lasts forever. Okay? This boring life is what you're supposed to be appreciating. It goes all the way back to that first scene where, he is walking out of off campus. Says, let us enjoy these aimless days while we can. And we get a little glimpse of the aimless days at the home, the mundane things, the white noise or whatever that's going on, all the little sounds. And boring, I hope it lasts forever. That's what you should be appreciating. And at the end, we go back to it. Now, and here's the conversation. Baba likes a cup when she comes back from class. They're talking about coffee. Likes a cup. So Babylon's cup again. And the sound of a car door closing. Denise reacts. Yada, yada. Anything that relaxes you is dangerous. Denise, again, watching suspicious activity. Babette is going to go the wrong way. Says she's going one place and it looks like she's heading another way. What are you going to do about Baba? He's trying to practice his German. She can't remember anything with those pills she takes. We don't know for sure she's taking something. Yeah, we do. It's Dylar, 1 every 3 days. Well, maybe she's done taking it. He's trying to interpret everything charitably. She is not. We all have our secrets, don't you think? Have to allow each other to have our secrets. She hides books on the occult in the attic. So again, if Babylon is the U.S., or Baba represents the U.S., here the occultic motivations for things being done, sort of hidden, secret, but there. I found them also, I don't think, or if it's just Babylon in general, the West. Also, I don't think she went to her posture class tonight. Why do you say that? Maybe she took the scenic route. She's like, that's left too. There's no explanation of where she went. She's not going where she said she's going. Come on, hurry up. Plane crash footage. So an interruption with a plane crash. Incidentally, this plane theme, crash theme, it sounds to me like at some point, maybe even in Germany, there will be a plane incident, I'm not sure where the plane is shot down or crashes through a terrorist attack or something that will be significant, maybe in 2024. Now, we'll get to that if that comes up, but the plane crash footage is important to them. We've already had one. Now, the plane crash footage that they go to see is a military training jet crash. And incidentally, interestingly, very similar at the same week, February 3rd, February 4th, that the East Palestine train incident happened. There was 2 dying in an Air Force trainer jet crash at the same time. Now, these things happen. Okay, so you could say it's a coincidence. But it is not, the fact that these 2 things happened roughly simultaneously in the film, this scene that we're going to go on and get to the train crash soon, and also in reality, at the same time that there was the East Palestine train crash, there was a plane crash, and that incident in 2023, in February, I think points to something bigger in the future, could hint that there's a more significant plane crash coming. And there's other reasons to think that later in the film, but we'll get there. Okay, plane crash footage. The kids are all going to look at that. Plane came down in a field next to the Ball Corporation. None of the thousands of spectators allowed in the area. Then he goes to sleep, and we see, this is a fascinating scene. He's in bed, looks over, no Babette. Okay, just where she was. He looks out the window, or looks out, not the window, looks out in front of him in the room, and we have what looks like a man, not Babette. And this is a man. This scar is important. This is Mr. Rabbit, the one I think is Mr. Rabbit. He's called Mr. Gray in the film later on. And he's the head of Gray Research, which is the creator of the drug. He's also the one who required or insisted that Babette trade sex, that if she wants more drugs, she has to trade sex for it, and agreed to the terms of the room, where they would later be killed. Now, I say be killed. Remember, that's that part of the interpretation. Some people may find controversial. We'll talk about it later. Now, okay, and so the scar on his hand or whatever it is important. But at this point, Jack has no clue what he's seeing, and he sits down in the bed with him, this guy, and goes under the bed, under the sheets, and then you get this looking at him like he's being haunted. And he wakes up under the sheets, pulls the sheets off, looks over, and Babette's over there. It was a dream. But what it is Babette, the one that Babette is sleeping with. They become one. We'll see them actually become one later in sort of Jack's imagination. And it's like he is lying with the person with whom she is sleeping, which is a fascinating way to represent this. And this film is, for being a quote-unquote absurdist comedy and drama, actually does have some well thought out. It's conceptually creative, I think. Anyways, we keep going. He says, I felt like I was falling through myself, like a heart-stopping plunge. Someone was here with us. Someone was here with us. Oh, I just... Well, we don't need to repeat it, do I? Okay, let's go. That's funny. All right. But anyways, yeah, so someone was here with us. I think I must have meant to have a different slide there, and I deleted it. And I didn't have it there. Must have pasted the wrong one. Doesn't matter. We'll just move on. Okay. And then we transition to like a little cafeteria in the university where the professors are sitting around talking with one another. Their conversations are shockingly like crass and almost perverse in a weird way, like pseudo-intellectual perversion, where you get this, arrogance amongst themselves while they descend into some of the lowest and most just disgusting behavior. And yet they prop it up like somehow they're the intellectual and moral heroes of society or whatever. It's natural, it's normal that decent, well-meaning people find themselves intrigued by catastrophe when they see it on television because they're suffering from brain fade. She says, Alfonsi says, we need an occasional catastrophe to break up the incessant bombardment of information. The flow is constant. Words, pictures, numbers, facts, graphics, statistics, waves, particles. Only a catastrophe gets our attention. We want them. We need them. Maybe they're talking about this after the plane crash being on the news. And then we get, while that conversation's going on in the background, again, like white noise, we have a conversation here between Murray and Jack. Murray wants to establish an Elvis Presley power base in the department, sort of like Jack has a Hitler studies program and is the main Hitler guy. Okay. He says he seems to feel, wait, need your help. He says he seems to feel that Katsakis has established a prior right. Katsakis was in Memphis when the king died. He interviewed members of the entourage and family for Katsakis or whatever. Elvis is just Elvis, but for me, Elvis is my Hitler. He says, how can I help? Okay, I thought you might drop by my lecture this afternoon informally and lend a note of consequence to the proceedings. Your prestige, your physical person would mean a lot. Okay, and well, there's talking in the back about pissing in sinks, the culture of public toilets. See the culture of public toilets. I've pissed in sinks all through the American West. See, there are these, just disgusting people, and yet, they talk about it with this air of, excellence, elitism, and so on. And then we cut to this black scene with a white crescent shape here. This is the a tunnel and a train passing through, and we zoom in and we see it come out, and we come out, and here's our toxic chemical train. So we have toxic chemical train on the one hand. I think this is related to the Hitler side, and then we have in this truck a flammable truck carrying flammable, gas or some sort or whatever, driving and listening to Elvis rubbernecking on the radio. So we have Elvis coming to Hitler, and that's going to join with this explosion. They go to the lecture hall. Murray's giving his Elvis talk that Elvis would die young, the life die young. Again, if Elvis is representing the U.S., here's another reference to the end of the U.S. young country. The life of a star of this type of magnitude. Okay, and we get this, this speech or lecture. Did his mother know that Elvis would die young? She talked about assassins. She talked about the life of a star, this magnitude. Isn't this life structured to cut you down early? This is the point, isn't it? There are rules, guidelines. But again, to cut you down early, this is the point. Now, I have a feeling about mothers. Mothers really do know. The folklore is correct. And Jack interrupts, and he's going to sort of get a dual lecture started. Hitler adored his mother. He was the first of Clara's children to survive infancy. Elvis and Gladys liked to nuzzle and pet. They slept in the same bed until he began to approach physical maturity. They talked baby talk to each other. We're going to get this back and forth. Hitler was a lazy kid. His report card was full of unsatisfactories. Gladys worried about his sleep, Elvis's sleepwalking. She lashed out at him. At any kid who tried to bully him. Gladys walked Elvis to school and back every day. She defended him in street rumbles. Clara loved him, spoiled him, gave him the attention his father failed to give him. Elvis confided in Gladys. He brought his girlfriend around to meet her, and so on. Okay, so we get this dueling lecture to lend a consequence to Murray's take on Elvis and his position in the department as the Elvis expert. Okay. So we see that Elvis and Hitler are mama's boys, basically. He cooked and cleaned. Hitler wept at the grave and fell into a period of depression and self-pity. Elvis fell apart when Gladys died. He fondled and petted her in the casket. He talked their baby talk. Okay, so we're getting this odd relationship between child and mother being described. I don't know anything about the history of Elvis and his mom, so I don't know. For the rest of his life, Hitler could not bear to be anywhere near a Christmas tree. It seems fairly certain that Gladys's death caused a fundamental shift at the center of the king's worldview. So Hitler and Elvis seem to have been dramatically affected by the death of a mother, whatever that is representing, and so on. You can read more about this, watch this, I think. I'm not going to go into every line, but at the end here, we start to get to the symbolism of the U.S. and Elvis. Elvis fulfilled the terms of the contract. Again, the contract is talked about. What did he do to fulfill the terms of the contract? He died. He became like an American here. Excess deterioration, self-destructiveness, grotesque behavior, physical bloating, and a series of insults to the brain, self-delivered. Okay? And then he ends up dying. His place in legend is secure. He bought off the skeptics by dying early, horribly, and unnecessarily. That's fulfilling the contract. The targets of the plot fulfilled the contract by dying miserably, horribly, and unnecessarily. No one could deny him now. His mother probably saw it all, and so on. Okay. And Jack had walked out. He comes back into the lecture hall. You certainly get what looks to me like some symbolism of the eclipses here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Okay, the 5 rings we've talked about several times in other videos but we'll keep going here. Picture Hitler near the end, trapped in his bunker, whatever, I guess. Fuhrer bunker. Beneath the burning city, he looks back to the early days of his power, when crowds came, mobs of people overrunning the courtyard, singing patriotic songs, painting swastikas on walls, and so on. Okay, and we get the comparison of the crowds for Hitler and the crowds for Elvis. And at the same time, we're getting the train and the truck coming together, just like we're getting the Hitler and the Elvis, and the lecture, the dueling lecture. They're coming together, buzzing in his left ear, sort of like white noise again. Okay, death approaching. And he says, but we've all been a part of those crowds. But there's something different about these crowds. What is it? Death. Death. Okay, and he's going to keep going on this theme. And then he's going to point to the future dead and point basically at us. We're taking almost the perspective of the student. He points directly at the future dead, us. Okay? So it's like a tribute to the future dead. And here comes the train colliding into the truck colliding into the train, causing it to, this derailment. There's derails here, dying alone, and the explosion. And during the explosion, we flash to Hitler, Elvis together. Very, very quickly, like the two come together in this event in Palestine. Now, that's East Palestine. In the real world, in film, I don't remember the name of the city right off the top of my head. I forgot. Maybe it'll come up later. Come back to me. And the movie was filmed in Ohio, and the name of the city where it happens in real life, East Palestine, I think points to what's coming later in real Palestine, perhaps, or in the conflict that comes after that. So there is the beginning of our airborne toxic event. Here are the hazmat people coming out, interestingly wearing German flag colors. Okay, and Jack, may the days be aimless, let the seasons drift, do not advance the action according to plan. Notice aimless days. They want aimless days again, rather than what they're going to actually get, which is an airborne toxic event. Okay. And you know what? I'm going to pause there because this video has gone on really long. I'll call this part 1 of the white noise series now because this is just way too long, and we're going to get to the rest of it later. I'll go through part 2 next, and then in a subsequent video, hopefully very soon, and then part 3 after that will probably be the last one. I'll see if I can do it in 3 videos, but this is a good breaking point. Chapter 1 of the film is completed. All right, like, subscribe, share, and take care. Blessings.